Welcome to Something to Talk About, a brand new topic, something that we haven't actually talked about before, and I don't know why we haven't, because they've been around for 50 years, and I can't imagine not having a conversation about MARC. And today we've got the two top heads of MARC, the director, Dr. Monique Story, with an IE, by the way, and then Lavon Guerrero-Meno. Nice to meet you.
Oh.
You're the administrative officer.
Yes,
okay.
I am.
And then and you're the director of.
Yes.
Well, how long have you been the director of MARC?
How long have I been to the director of MARC?
You didn't think about that part of your anniversary.
I've been with MARC since 1995.
Okay.
And so I think I stepped into the directorship about 2012,
Okay.
2013.
So 50 years.
Yes.
This resource center has been available. Was it originally designed to be available to the public as a resource center, as much as it was an asset to the University of Guam as a resource just in-house?
MARC actually started out because the president and the vice president of the university were watching all of this research that was going on. Different colleges, different institutes across the nation were coming in and doing these researches about the different islands within Micronesia, about what was happening on Guam. And they wanted to make sure that it was made available. What was found out from all of this research was made available to the island community. So they went and spoke with the governor, and they spoke with Senator Richard Flores Titano, which is who our namesake is, and they agreed, and they believed it was a very strong need for the community for us to have all of this research, so that we could use this to learn more about ourselves and to become more of an economic force in the region. So they drafted it as a legislation, and we were chartered in August 1967. And so the first phase that they did was they went to the National Archives in D.C. They went to different archives across the world, in Mexico, in the Philippines, in Spain, looking for documents that were about Micronesia, and then bringing it here, and organizing everything so that it was so that it could be used. And then the next resource, or the next phase, became, okay, so now we have this large amount of information, what are we going to do with it? So they organized how everything was. They organized it. They came up with 3 plans. One was to have an institute for social studies, and then there was going to be an institute on natural resources, and then there was going to be an institute that focused on the pre-contact information.
Oh, okay.
And so that was how
you were trying to cover all bases there of existence.
Right,
all right.
Right. And so just ran forward with that.
Yeah. And so how has it evolved from 50 years to 2018?
Okay. Well, the Center for the Social Studies, that kind of serves as our core in terms of the libraries. We have 1 reference collection and 2 archival collections, and so those are how we get information out to our community. So people, it is a community resource, and so we're open for people to come in. We have people looking at their family histories. We have people that are looking to find out more about the Spanish galleon trade, looking at what's going on in the region, so that kind. The Institute for Natural Resources is actually, it grew out into the University of Guam's Marine Lab. And Weary. So we kind of served almost as an incubator, and then they took on a life of its own.
Okay. So what's your job, Lavon? You do all the legwork. What's your job in all of this?
I oversee the administrative side of the MARC, the administrative operations of MARC, and really taking on a lot of responsibility with regards. I mean, I chair various programs for the MARC, and in particular, I run the Guam History Day program, which is linked to the National History Day, and this program reaches out to high school, middle school kids and encourages them to do research on the history of Guam.
Yeah.
Right. And so
is there technology involved here? Because when you're talking about high school students, it's much different than us going to the library and hanging out after school. Then now it's at your fingertips. You can pretty much get anything you want. So how has that technology changed? Are you online? Is that an online resource, or do they physically have to go to the center?
Well, we totally encourage the kids to come to the center. Not too many people are aware of the MARC. When people think of the MARC, they usually associate us with genealogy, because that's one of the most active programs, and our publications. We've got a very strong publications program. But really, MARC is a center of, our libraries hold so many, it's a wealth of information about Micronesia.
What would you compare it to? I mean, if it, on a larger, more relatable scale, MARC on Guam, MARC to Guam is
like the Bishop Museum is
Bishop
to
Museum
Hawaii.
is to Hawaii. Okay,
Correct.
All right, and that's a large campus. The Bishop Museum, there's a lot in there. Would we one day become that? I mean, would that be something to be celebrated? MARC being a place that has different, buildings that are dedicated to particular subject matter. I mean, if you look at Bishop Museum, it's quite impressive, but it's also run by a very large, nonprofit. So it's much different. But can we be that? Not Bishop Museum necessarily, but
we can. There are some days that I think that's the right way to go, and then there are other days where, especially when we are working in partnerships, we have a working relationship with the Guam Museum, with the Guam Preservation Trust, and so there are ways that we can still get those same types of tasks and those same types of buildings, without us having to actually build our own buildings.
Right.
So,
I mean, we don't have sprawling, property that's dedicated to this. But I think the larger point is that for a place like Guam, where the Guam personality is sought after. Who are we? What's our character? How do we roll? How do we fit in this role that is, this region? We have our own personal history,
right?
And unlike the Guam Museum, you've been tracing. I mean, this is not a diss on the Guam Museum, but you have a lot of resources that have come to you from researchers who have been
worldwide
utilizing for many years now. That information is readily available and searchable.
Right.
Does that mean then that people actually can come to the facility to do that, or are we all online?
We're not online yet. In fact, that's we had at the beginning of this 50th year, we sat down and we were thinking as a group, what is it that we want to do? And that is our next logical step. Is how do we get ourselves online? So we have some of our foundations set. We have our library collection that is available through the University of Guam website. We do have collections within our Spanish documents and our manuscripts collections. Those that a general description of, and we call them finding aids. It's going to be like a listing of what is in each of these archived collections. Those are what's available online. So we're working our way towards actually getting the materials online.
I think that there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the plan to go online, there is something about having this information accessible to the computer.
Right.
But isn't there also something to just being able to sit down, under a lamp with some nice smelling paper and then kind of go back and, and do that finger, flipping and all of that of the paper? isn't there still yet the interest in that in research?
Yes,
Yeah.
we get a much different reaction from our patrons in the library when we serve, because we do have people that email us questions. They're off island and they can't get to the facility.
Right.
And so they're like, well, we have this question, can you help us? And so we'll send them the information and they'll be like, oh, thanks.
Okay.
But when they walk in the door and they see, how much information is there about that topic, they their eyes wide open, their mouth is to the floor, and they're like, how did I not know this existed?
That's a pretty cool thing. How did I not know that this existed? Maybe it's the best kept secret. We're going to talk a little bit about Mark and its success over the past 50 years to document us here in Guam. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Something to Talk About. We're talking about Mark today with Dr. Monique Story. I want to say Marjorie. You know I do, right?
Yes,
okay,
yes, I
because
do.
she was a long time employee, loyal, fierce, a pillar at the university for a long time. So I hope you don't mind about that. Levon Guerrero, is it Guerrero Meno or Meno Guerrero?
Guerrero Meno.
Okay.
Correct.
And they're both with Mark. I'm learning some things about the center. I was watching this. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm like binge watching stuff now, but somebody turned me on to a show. I think it's on Netflix. It's called The Windsors. Have you seen it?
Oh.
No.
I think I have.
It's
yes.
a BBC
Yes.
documentary, and it's basically the monarchy.
Yes.
And they start from King George, and to present. But what they've done is they've gone into either the palace or the British government's archives and uncovered like handwritten notes, from monarchs across the world. Back at Nicholas and George and their communications, and just handwritten letters between the Prince Philip and Princess Diana. But every time they went into this archive, this place, they always said never before seen on camera. And that was the thing that was really kind of intriguing about it, is because they held these little treasures that complemented every event in the British Empire that you ever wanted to know about, backed up by these letters and notes. So when you watch things like National Treasure, you always think, are there tiny morsels that are of information that people don't recognize, shaped how Guam was or is or was at the time that this information was first revealed.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, is there stuff in there that's not common to public knowledge?
Yes.
That was a
Quick
long
answer.
question, but I was trying to set it up to be intriguing. But you know what I'm going after here. I'm sure you have dramatic moments where you go, oh my God, come here and look at this.
Routinely.
Oh
Yes,
my God.
Yeah.
That must be so cool.
It is. It's a lot of fun. I've been there since 1995.
Yeah, and you're still discovering.
Still discovering.
What's like your greatest reveal? What's like the one where you went, you will not believe what I found today?
Well, actually, the one that I like to show off to students is that when we think of maps, we generally tend to think of them as these huge, large pieces of paper, and has all this information on it. One of the more interesting maps that I had actually come across was a cloth map that was put together by the American Foreign Board of Missionaries, American missionaries. And so it was the fact that it was cloth. I tried to figure out why, this cloth was why it was cloth when all the other maps from that time period were actually
Like paper,
paper-based.
yeah.
And so it was one of those where I had talked with the different people, and somebody looks at me and they're like, well, look at the date, it's 1880. How did you get from here to there in 1880? You went by boat.
Yeah.
And so so there are practical things that just escape us now.
Right.
But it was because that way they ensured the safe passage while they're on the boat. And we also have like the Guam newsletter and the Guam Recorder. Those are basically our newspapers from prior to the war. And in it is just, like all these little treasure troves of things that were going on the island. So they would report out on things like the agricultural fair that happened every year. So that kind of, in the post-war years, it's kind of like what our liberation activities are.
Right.
So prior to the war, we had something similar. So it was the agricultural fair.
Did you notice, was there like, radio silence, between 1941 and 1944?
Well, the Guam Recorder actually ended November 1941 because the press
There was no way to,
there was no way to
do it.
right.
Wow. So there's but that's not clearly not a missing part of our history. It's just that they weren't putting it out.
Correct. Right.
Is there anything that was revealed about you and your Chamorro-ness?
Oh, one thing I loved about going through the Guam Recorder per se, they had birth announcements and death announcements
cool
and marriage. You know how they used to do the marriage bands?
Yeah.
And going through it, I found my father's birth date on these announcements.
Oh my God.
Check this out.
Back in the day when those things made print, when it mattered when a kid was born?
Right.
How weird. Did you show that to your
It
dad?
was so cool. My father had already passed away, but I had shared it with
How
my
awesome.
siblings. So this is so cool.
Yeah, they don't do the
Just
birth
thinking,
announcements anymore.
No, but and then they talked about the different in these things. They talked about different harvest times and the recipes that they can make with the fruits
and
at
the
that time. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So cool. Yeah.
What is the information that is sought after by researchers who are trying to understand the whole movement in this area? What is it that is intriguing that they ask you about, the information that is most sought after? Is there anything?
Every researcher comes in with a very unique question. But at the beginning of this segment, you said that we're looking to find out who we are.
Yeah.
And so that's actually what they're coming in, is with that same kind of idea, is who do we think we are and what do the documents say?
Are we close?
We have found a lot of things that the documents say one and we believe another.
Has that anything that will change the course of history? Are we doing something wrong?
No. No, but
this was not Marine Drive. I mean, nobody wants to hear this was,
Right.
Challen Rice. You know what I mean? Okay, all right. So nothing major.
No, nothing major, but
turned
it's just like, it would be something like. We believed that so and so had settled in this village first, and then so and so came in 20 years before.
Okay.
So
and then these are like little tidbits that you don't want to correct a family on. It's like they come to the party and they're telling you, it's like, we own this land. You're like, oh, well, kind of.
Yeah, we have had that, especially when it comes to the family history.
There's disputes about what the family history is. How deep and how far back can you go in family history? Does every local family have some sort of? I think there was somebody who came in from Honolulu and was looking for his grandmother's information because she had come from the Philippines originally, and he wanted to find out because she came through Guam, and he went up there and searched feverishly and was not able to capture her name. And I remembered the name for a long time because I thought, oh, maybe one of these days, somebody will open a drawer. I'm like, well, but
that's where you're behind.
Yeah, that's where you're behind. What is the likelihood of things surfacing? Have you updated old records because of a find?
I don't actually update the resources. What we do is, if we know that there is somebody who's going to be coming in, we keep mental notes of what new information has come out, and so if somebody has the historical document, but we know that it was updated with more recent information, then we'll say, well, that was what was printed in here, but there was an update, and give them that information.
Just on a final note, I'm so curious to understand and to see whether or not this is the true belief that a lot of Guam's political and social structure was based primarily on the church. Was it primarily the Catholic Church that from which our politics or our laws or was that? Was I asking a loaded question? I told you I didn't know the answer. I just wanted to know. Was it based, because that's what we tend to believe, that it's because of our Catholicism or it's because of our religion that everything else began?
I'm not within those fields to feel confident saying.
Yeah. She didn't open that book yet.
No, I haven't opened that book yet.
Well, I'm looking forward
with over 14,000 books in the collection by
there's
itself.
Time.
There's
plenty of time.
Lots to
Well,
find.
anybody can go, right? And where are you located specifically?
We are on the University of Guam campus. The easiest way to find us is we are right across the way from the Humanities and Social Sciences building.
Right. Okay. Easy to find.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to thank you guys. Honestly,
thank you.
this can actually be a non-sexy topic for some people who think, oh my God, it's all about education and learning. But no, this is cool because this is how you find out about people and stuff. And there's a lot of stuff. I mean, to put it very plainly, there's a lot of stuff. Thank you for joining us on Something to Talk About. We'll see you next time.